We will call the meeting to order at 7:03.
Sure.
And I guess the first thing is to call for late additions to the agenda, which I have a few, and there's probably a few others. Things are happening fast, lots of stuff. A few of these things I'm going to kind of lump into number 8, which is just kind of an update on the COVID-19 situation, town operations, things like that. I think I'll kind of bucket yours into there too. Volunteer thing was one of them, and the internet access type discussion, if you want to comment on that, town internet access. So, the other was there are a few overweight permits that are come in. Want to discuss an appointment to the Jamaica Planning Commission, and also discuss the possibility of setting up an authorized member of our board to sign off on pay orders and things like that if we decide down the road that we're not holding meetings or things like that, so we can kind of keep rolling along. Did you have others, Paul? I know you had mentioned, but I think a few I covered.
You got the one for the from the fax from VLCT. You got that one. The draft. That's under your 8, right?
Yep.
Okay. And oh, I have one quick little letter we got today from West River Valley Thrives. So we get at that later at the end.
Okay. Anybody else? Nope. Good. Hopefully we have a lot to talk about. Hopefully though we can stay on track and move along. Next item, to approve the minutes of the March 9th, our last meeting. Hopefully everybody had a chance to read it, or any comments? The only thing I did have one, I just wanted to, I think down underneath the transfer station, this is regarding you, Jessica, does say Wyndham Solid Waste Management Assistant, should say alternate.
Alternate.
Where's this again?
At the very last, second to last line on the town appointments on the first page of the minute.
Oh, okay, should be alternate. Gotcha.
Anything else?
I move we accept the March 9th minutes with that correction.
Second.
Second by Paul. Any other additional comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Got 4 approvals. Any opposed? Thank you. And now next to approve the minutes, this is something that we missed at last week's meeting, but to approve the minutes from the town meeting. I didn't see anything on there. Anybody else?
I didn't really study them, to be honest with you.
Want to defer it to the next meeting? Or you want to take a minute now and read it?
Did anyone look at them?
I read through.
I read them.
Yeah,
I
I
read
mean,
them.
nothing jumped out. I'll make a motion to approve.
No, but Terry, did you read the numbers? That was the only thing that in the minutes?
But I gave her the numbers to put.
You gave her the numbers, got it. That would be my
So I'm
thing
glad
I
that
would,
she,
right,
they're the same.
in which case,
Yep.
yeah, that was the only thing that I wasn't sure about.
Well, I'll move that we accept the town meeting 2020 Jamaica, Vermont minutes.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Okay, perfect. And as we always do, we will move the approval of the timesheets and the pay orders and things like that to the end of the meeting. There have come in, I guess I actually had that on the agenda. I thought I was going to add it, but it's already there. The approved, there are 6 overweight permits that have come in. They all have their they've all paid and all that good stuff. And we will move them to the road commissioner. Any discussion?
Just the names of them.
Okay, we can read that for the record. There is A.S. Clark and Sons of Newfane, Plimpton Excavating of Wardsboro. We have Newton Construction of Middlesex, Vermont. We have A.R. Sandry Incorporated of somewhere close by. Greenfield, thank you. And Suburban Propane of Manchester, I'm going to assume. And one other, Miller Construction of Windsor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
It's also in case there's something, what company any of us have.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
I move to pass the overweight permits to the road commissioner.
All moves, I'll second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good to go. We'll move those along. One item I did put on here, just so people know, and everybody, I mean, I don't know how quickly this gets posted online, for the people that are not here, the school district vote, I guess they're meeting tonight or tomorrow at their meeting, where they then will vote to postpone the vote. So other than that, I don't know anything, but I'm just threw it on there just to let everybody know that the vote is going to be postponed. Stay in touch with your school board, and we'll find out when. It's an important vote. Hopefully everybody gets out there when it does come up. And now the big item on the list, kind of updates on the COVID-19 and then office operations. That was kind of the first thing that came up, and then there's obviously a lot of things that have been tagged on there. I guess we kind of don't want it too big of a bucket, but we've got a nice bucket here to throw some stuff in to talk about. The first thing, Paul and I met last week with Terry and Sarah in the office and just addressed some top-level issues, concerns with people, a lot of people coming in and out of the office. So right now the office is operating with a closed door. All functions are going on inside, answering the phone, doing the computer work and that kind of stuff. But we then also drafted some alternatives if we need to go further. And I think tonight's discussion would be to formally approve these, but also talk about what these next steps are, if we can kind of forecast that a little bit. Right now, we're on step 1, I guess, and I'll just read this for the camera. Given the current spread of the COVID-19 virus throughout our region, the town of Jamaica is taking the following steps to protect the health of our personnel and the public. They will be implemented immediately and continue until cleared by the State Department of Health. The first step, which is what we've kind of implemented right now, is the office will remain open during normal business hours. However, walk-in service will be eliminated. Any business to be transacted that cannot be conducted by phone or email may be arranged with the town staff by calling the office and making an appointment. And from our feedback, that seems to be working fairly well. There's definitely been a reduction in just in general the amount of traffic anyways, but it's nice to be kind of distanced from people just coming in and out of the office and get our regular work done. And it's nice that somebody's there to answer the phone and kind of relieve maybe some people's anxieties about what's going on, answer questions and things like that. So step 2 would be that we would fully close the town office and transfer phones, computer applications and things like that to the treasurers and the town clerk's homes. This would be if the state moved to go into more of a lockdown type operations. We have moved our main software to the cloud, Nemrick, which handles our just about everything, probably.
All of mine.
So all of our pay orders, all of our accounting functions, things like that. I think land records are there too. So a lot of the different operations for both the treasurer and town clerk are moved to the cloud as of now, and you guys have worked that and tested it, and it's
Today was the
functional.
First day and it worked great.
So we're able to do that now, if that comes about.
The last sentence, maybe.
And then, actually, yeah, I didn't quite finish reading that. Should the occasion arise that something must be done from the office, the staff, they will come to the office as needed for the particular project or as they feel necessary. And that somewhat will be dictated by any mandates that come down to say what we can and cannot do.
Right.
But we obviously want to remain as functional as possible and, provide services to the town as needed. Any further comments or?
I think one of the things that we don't know the answer to is how long we're going to be in this position. And the longer we are, the harder it's going to be to have the place closed. So there may be a time, if it goes to that, to the end of the fiscal year or later on, when they may need to go into the office to do some things, that's part of the plan. We build that in there. But it's going to be a while.
Yeah, I mean, despite some noise coming out of the White House, I think realistically it's going to be a while, because I think our governor, based on his most recent press conference, while he's not there yet, I wasn't quite sure where he was going, but it's, regardless of what the White House dictates, each of these governors are going to lay down the law as they see fit. I'm not sure there's going to be just kind of the types of activities that might make the town office, increase tension with the town office being closed would be commercial ones. I don't think there's going to be an increase in commercial activity, so I don't think we have to worry about that. If there was another, if for whatever reason we became involved as a town in activities around the virus and we needed access to the town offices, I would defer to Sarah and Terry on that, what that would be, or if there were another natural disaster, right? But other than that, with the access to all of the data through the cloud, I think it could probably subsist the way it is. I thought the document, as you've just described, is kind of, I don't know that we really need to do anything to it at this stage. I think
It's simple,
it's
which
good.
is nice.
Simple.
But it covers.
Yeah.
Right.
The only thing that, it's not mentioned specifically, but it's got to do with how long this goes on, is I believe, Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, but do you not need access to the printer in your office to cut checks for the road crew?
Well, I just talked to the road crew into going to direct deposit.
Good.
And on a normal week, they were really the only 2 checks that I wrote.
Okay.
So I can do direct deposit from home if I
Okay.
have to, because
Good.
I just need to take it with me. And if any of you want your checks direct deposit, just give me the form and. There's one other person that works in the library that I got a check for, but I believe the library is closed right now, so I don't think that I will be paying her. But I do have a question about the librarian.
I think Greg said the library's closed, but she was still working in it.
The
regular
librarian is,
librarian.
I'm not sure.
Oh, regular librarian, they're thinking about,
The other one.
I-
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
support her.
that's true, yeah.
And I,
And the other Greg, so I don't know.
No, the other Greg,
Yeah,
yeah. There's lots of Gregs, we have plenty to choose from.
and I do have a question about her pay, but I don't know
Does-
when that would come up. so-
Does Dan's pay go to the automatic or is it in a check?
Say that again?
Dan.
Dan,
Dan is direct deposit.
this is direct deposit, so.
Yeah, the 2 highway guys were the only ones that were the holdouts, and I basically told them they needed to
Make
do
sure
that.
they
And
get
they
paid.
did it today. I just did everything today, so
Yeah, it alleviates some uncertainty.
Yeah.
that's for sure, because the banks, most of their lobbies are closed
now,
now.
too.
And this, I said, you'll get it 12 hours after you would normally get your check, so it's.
Without having to go to the bank.
Right. We'll clear before.
And if I had to take the printer home for some reason, my printer that's near my desk is pretty compact,
Portable.
so I can just take it.
Would you have any need for the, well, if you guys, let's go to paragraph 2. If the 2 went home and started working strictly out of the office, if for some reason we had to close the office down. There's one phone line. How do you envision dividing up that in the fax machine, fax line? How would you divide that up? Have you thought about that?
Well, the fax would answer itself, obviously, when it's a fax in there. And the only time that line rings is when our first line is busy. So if we're on the first line, it'll roll to the fax line. So if nobody is there to answer the first line, I believe if it's transferred to one of us, that second line wouldn't ring anyway. They would probably get a busy signal, and then they would just call back if we were on the phone. But truthfully, in the last few days, the phone has not been overly
Yeah.
busy.
And I think if we did move to transfer one of the lines, we could always ask Consolidated what kind of functionalities out there as far as forwarding things and things like that.
I mean, we've forwarded lines in the past, like, I don't know what the situation was, but it was fairly recent. It might have been when the town garage phone was out.
Oh,
I
right.
had it transferred to the town office so that I could, you know, if somebody called the town garage, it would just ring in there.
Yeah, pretty
It's
straightforward
easy
stuff to
to
move the
do,
phone.
yeah.
We just have to come up with who's forwarding it and when does it ring and all that kind of stuff, I guess. Do we want to go through that right now to determine or deputize
Are we
somebody to
thinking-
run the operation once we get there?
Are we gonna have another meeting in 2 weeks here?
I think right now we're somewhat going through some items to not have to.
Okay, I didn't know if that's,
But it's a good question. I mean, it may get worse. I think we're all comfortable in here if everything's given the same, but there's one thing that came about that we'll add in for discussion, maybe now's a good time to bring it up, it's the, signing off on the pay orders. We do have to do that as part of the open meeting law. We can't just say, come on into the office and everybody sign off on your own thing. But we, according to this statute here, and this is some information from VLCT, is that we're able to designate somebody to sign off on the pay orders. And so my thinking is that we'd want to do that, again, for Plan B. If we don't meet in 2 weeks, we'll have somebody authorized to sign off on the pay orders so that we're not forced to meet.
before this, in the select board handbook, it says if the select board agrees, I mean, I don't know if this would ever come into play, but, or if it's even about what we're talking about. But the chair and the vice chair, if the select board says it's okay, like they decided on something, one or the other can sign.
Right.
I don't know if it applies to that
No,
or,
I think it's exactly that.
but the chair and the
you just have
vice
to say
chair.
who it is. It doesn't, I don't even think it has to be the chair or the vice chair. but
Well, and
that
there are
makes
things
sense.
that are in the
You
reg, and if this wasn't going on.
Yeah, oh, that even without this, I mean,
Yes.
you don't have to authorize it. Oh, okay.
I
So
don't
maybe
know
we're
if
just
that,
being,
if that pertains to checks, but it said if the select board approves of whatever it is,
yeah,
that
Right.
the chair or the vice chair can sign. Didn't say what, whatever needed to be.
Right.
Right, so when it's like the board of directors, if a board of directors authorizes
Authorizes.
a loan,
Yeah.
right? Any authorized officer is allowed to sign. It's essentially the same construct. But I think in this case, what would be cleaner for us would be to say, Greg, if you're comfortable with it, we are acknowledging that as a board, that, we're investing in you the authority to sign.
and I'm very comfortable with it, and I think that we should, I guess we do have to vote on it, so we can't say
Right.
vote on it contingent to having another meeting, but we do have to say it. And if we have another meeting, we can always
Change it.
unvote it.
Right.
So to speak. And I think that makes sense because in my thinking too, it's not gonna immediately get better and if we can have an option to not have a meeting, and there may be other issues that we need to have the meeting, but if we can eliminate a couple, that's
Right,
great.
absolutely.
I think you should, maybe we should follow that rule that it's maybe two signers. If you can't make it or you get sick or that the vice
An
chair could
alternate,
do it.
vice chair is
Sure,
an
right,
alternate.
absolutely, yeah. And Tom has actually expressed that since he's in town, he could be the person too. So
Right.
not that I can't get here, but Tom
Right.
has offered to be one of those people.
Right, are you comfortable, well,
Yeah.
Andy is as well, and I'm in town, but Andy is vice chair, do you want to?
Yes, because it's in the manual already.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's in the handout that I gave you, there's actually a motion, tentative motion written in the second paragraph there. This is not to be a motion, just reading it says. A motion to give such authorization might be phrased as, I move that we appoint, for example, the chair and the vice chair of the legislative body members to approve and sign orders for payroll.
I was just
For
about to
example.
actually say that.
What's that?
I was just about to say that without this, but yeah, I'm happy
Yeah,
to
no,
make
I'm
that
just saying,
motion.
this.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
It's exactly what we're talking about.
Right.
For, till 1st of July or something.
Oh, this is from the FAQs, okay.
Yeah. I'm not this creative. And then any orders approved under this authority must state definitely the purpose for which they are drawn. The full legislative body must later be provided with a record of all the orders. So we just have to keep record of everything that we sign. Terry was talking earlier about sending the warrants to us all, and that if there was, if none of us had any questions or disapproval, then we could just send a note to you saying, yup.
Yeah, or just to voice concerns if something we looked at.
And if there's a problem,
Questions or
exactly.
whatever. Yeah.
Or if there was an invoice that you had a question about,
Mhm.
then I could send that to you. And the other thing is that I have a Google account for my treasure. I have a Gmail account, so I could set up the drive to put the invoices on, and then you could look at them all.
And if you would invite us all to it.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Is that, it's legal, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
because all of this has to be transparent, so
Right.
putting it on Google is consistent with.
And there may, sounds like, I mean, the legislature is in continuous discussion of making these types of laws still fit the law, but be a little bit more.
Less stringent.
Less stringent in a situation like this. So
There's
these,
one that's
this may become, not this, but in general, things may become
Hasn't
easier.
happened yet.
Yeah, I think.
Tomorrow, I think, is
Tomorrow.
scheduled.
Last week it was last Wednesday,
Right.
and this week it's tomorrow.
Yeah, and
So it's gonna be-
I've heard that there's grumbling,
Yeah.
so I
Kicking the
would
ball
be
down.
great if it happens tomorrow, but it may not.
Yeah.
So are we all, do you want to make the formal,
Um,
in the interest of moving along? or-
Sure, I don't have any problem with that. Let's, do we like the idea of sending the warrants? That's independent of the motion, that's just the mechanics of how to affect it. So the motion would be to have the chair and the vice chair.
It would be both or either.
It's the chair and the vice chair as an alternate if the chair is not available.
Okay.
You want to just one, or I don't know if it needs to be two? What do you think?
What you just said.
I think it should have to be
Or
or,
vice chair.
not and.
Okay, this doesn't put or in here, but we
No.
can put that in ourselves. All right, let's try this phrase. I move that we appoint the chair or the vice chair of the Jamaica Select Board to approve and sign orders for payroll or operating expenses for
Put it out
April,
there.
May, June.
We can always,
I would say until the,
3 months.
until the
Yeah.
board reverses it.
What's that?
Why don't we do it until the board reverses it?
well, they did say for a period of time.
Um,
It's suggested to say a
I'm
period of
just,
time.
yeah.
And we can always still
There-
reverse it.
Here, yeah, here's
Put
the
it a
thing,
date
don't
out
change
there,
it. There
and
may
then we
be
can
a
always-
and
provision.
I would do 12 months until we reverse it.
I still don't understand what you just said.
I understand that it says for a period of time here, and I think
Yeah.
under ordinary circumstances, you would do that, but in this circumstance, my advice would be, my recommendation would be, don't. Either do a very long period, unless we decide an earlier time. Just gives us maximum flexibility.
And my thought on that was when I read this the first time was there may be something, some buried in the bowels of the legislature that says in order for us to do this, there must be a discrete period of time,
There,
perhaps.
I've done some I
So
don't-
say it's a year.
It's not gonna be an invalid.
Say it's a year and in 6
Right.
months if we
If we
come
say
back.
12 months, it's not gonna be an invalid resolution of the board.
I feel more comfortable just saying July 1st and we can revote it again.
See how things are going.
Yeah.
July 1.
1st of July.
It may require us to convene though to reverse, to
If we
re-vote.
don't meet between now and the 1st of July.
Exactly,
we can
that's
most
why,
likely see that.
that's why I don't recommend it,
We
but,
can't say indefinitely.
no, but a longer period than 2 months.
No, I'm asking, I'm like, indefinitely
You
isn't
actually,
specific enough.
not really, because then you're in essence, you're changing the operate, the function of the board and the roles of some of the members of the board.
Okay.
So I think this is, to address, but I don't think July 1, I would just go out farther. I'd go 6 months, and then,
We can always turn it off.
yes, and it's reasonable to say 6 months, just, it's, if you meet a reasonable man standard based on the science and what's understood about what we're facing. So for the board to have said, for this length of time, and knowing at any time, if it resolves and things are great this summer, we can always, shut it off.
Okay, open
So
air meeting.
you're saying 6 months, go to the 1st of September then?
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Do I hear a second to that revised, do you have this wording, Terry? It's the standard wording that's.
I'll give you a copy of this, Terry.
That's in the
I think I
VLCT.
have a copy at the office.
Does,
Just before we do the resolution, so Terry, payroll and operating expenses is a big enough bucket in terms of the orders that are there any other, only because I'm new to this, so I don't know what other types of orders.
Good question.
I was wondering what we call the other orders, but operating
Right.
expenses is good.
Is
Does that
good
cover
enough,
it?
okay.
That covers it?
You have a colorful claim with that.
I mean, there was some
Okay.
emergency, but it would still be operating expense, so.
When you look at what we end up signing all the time, it's basically how the expense of running the town, operating
Right.
expense. That's why I put them both in there.
Right, okay.
so,
Do you wanna
is the
read that?
motion
Motion.
lengthy to read back? I need, I'll second it, but I don't,
Read it
Well, I
again.
have the wording here.
Okay.
So I'll put it in there. And then you can next time fix it.
So we can read it again, though.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
yeah, so I seconded it, so.
but you like.
Reread the motion.
Read what we've got.
I want us to do what Terry
Just read-
wrote.
Read what Terry's gonna write.
Or Terry, do you want to read it for us?
Or I can.
Between the two of them, I'm gonna put
Yeah.
this together, because I think I wrote something totally different than what, was on the sheet, so.
It's right there in the middle of that second bullet.
So you moved that we appoint
The chair.
Chair and vice chair.
chair
Or the vice chair.
Or the vice chair.
or the vice chair as an alternate if the chair is unavailable. I'm reading my stuff too. So,
Yeah.
to approve and sign the orders for payroll and the running expenses.
Through September.
But this is- okay, so
Through
through.
September 1.
All right, I had
For
expired.
the period of
but
6 months, or, okay.
Through September 1, 2020. And I don't think the rest of it is part of the.
No, I think
No, that's
that's good.
explanation.
So-
Yep.
Now, do we want to say do we want to say in the minutes, because it does seem to be saying here, you want to be making clear why you're undertaking this, and this is, in response to, steps the town is taking to address the COVID-19 pandemic. I think that's enough. I don't think we have to say any more than that, but we
Right.
do have to say why we're doing it.
Right.
Well, it might clearly say to modify our town select board procedures in light of the COVID. Because we're not actually attacking COVID with this, we're attacking our procedures.
Okay, right, yeah.
Yeah, we're on the
I'm
same
fine
page.
with that.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, just as long as we're stating what the reason is, yeah.
So what are you gonna say after this?
That this is.
This motion
this-
is in
In support
response.
of the modification of select board procedures in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. And see, what it says in here about the legislative body must be, later be provided with a record of all orders. Terry, if you just send us the warrants, that's basically a record of all orders.
Yes.
So by doing that, then we cover that provision of the law as well.
Now, when those get sent, Who sees them?
Just us.
Just
All
us?
of us. Right.
Okay, but is that public,
I'm gonna send them to everybody.
right, but if someone wanted to see these, can they walk in the office and look at them? Okay.
Not going
But I
forward,
just,
though,
that
the
has
offices
nothing
won't.
to do with the motion, really,
Right.
but.
But
But
we
if-
could then
right.
share that.
So someone would have to
If
make a
someone-
request to
Right.
see them, and then Terry could give access.
Right.
Okay.
But that's not really different than today, when you
No,
go,
that's correct.
someone wanted to see them, they
No,
go
I
to the
kind
office.
of
Yeah.
was saying that for the camera.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yep. So we're comfortable with that? Or are you still,
I'm comfortable with that motion as it's being recorded by our secretary. Not quite sure how it's worded, but I'm all right with it.
any further discussion? Sounds like, Terry, you've got it, right?
Yeah.
You read it back.
I
Yeah.
hope so, or you're gonna have to change it the next time. Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, I think that was one of the bigger items in that bucket. There was a few other things that I mean, more or less can just, maybe we'll get into some stuff that Chris is he's got some detail on. But we've, I mean, these just make logical sense. I mean, at the transfer station, the operational hours are, continuing as normal. Dan's taken steps for his personal health. We have closed the swap shop though, partly due to a tight space, and also we don't need goods coming in or out of there that may be contaminated. There was the discussion of extending the dog license deadline to May 1st, which I think is pretty, I think that I've heard that's a logical extension.
Yes.
And I think as a board, we may need to vote on that just because that's part of it is a statute, it is a town statute.
I can tell you that just personally, I have a pet who needs his rabies shot, and I can't get one. So
And all the clinics are not going.
They're
I
not.
missed the clinic. I was gonna bring him to the vet, like I usually do. but
Yeah.
They're not,
Yeah.
they only do an emergency.
Exactly.
So that too, we may end up
So-
extending a little bit. I mean, obviously, we
Of course,
want
they want
pets to
to.
have all their shots and all that good stuff. I mean,
Right.
there's obvious reasons why we do want to have all the licenses, the dog's license, but given the practical sense. do
Is
we
that
need to-
long enough, May, or?
I know, that's what I was just thinking, I don't know if my vet's gonna be open by May 1.
Is it a real, like, public health issue that dogs might get rabies in Jamaica? I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's just
Yeah, but that's
thrown
more of
in
an
on
issue
top
that they
of
can't get
it.
the shot versus they can't get their license.
Right.
So we
Right,
don't
but you
have a-
can't get a license if you don't have your,
Correct, but we don't have control over the shots.
Right.
So
Right.
it doesn't matter what date we set for the deadline.
Well, what we have control over is we could waive the,
That, exactly,
Penalty.
waive the penalty,
Waive the
that's the issue.
Penalty, and you
Right.
have a select board member with an unlicensed dog.
we'll waive that too.
Traces.
So do
It's
we,
too late.
I don't know, do we need to vote on that as a specific item?
I think we need to vote on the waiving of the
Yeah.
penalty because it involves funds, expenditures.
I'll make a motion to waive the penalties associated with the dog licensing deadline of April 1st. And I'll throw it out there as June 1st,
Sure.
until June 1st.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? One other one that was brought up to me as a possible fee situation was to waive the pay-as-you-throw fees. I don't know, I mean, I can see the reason from somebody who's able to afford that, but I don't know that we have the authority to do that because it is a state. I mean, it's this state law, so to speak, that instituting the pay-as-you-throw.
Someone asked for that to be waived, is that?
That was brought up to
Oh,
me,
okay.
to say, here's something else that we may have people in town that are, unable to get a bag, unable to afford the bags, that they're out of work, those types of things. So acknowledging that may be an issue, I said I'd bring it up. But I don't know for sure that we have the ability to waive that since it is mandatory.
Right, that's not a town of Jamaica edict, right? That's a,
Pay as you throw is an ordinance in
Well, you
Jamaica.
pay, you throw his ours.
Oh,
Okay,
it
but
is?
isn't it state mandated though that we,
I'm trying to remember it now.
because of the mandatory recycling, that,
How we do it is up to us.
Yeah.
We chose to
We
do
chose.
the bags and the
Okay.
pay and throw.
Right,
That was something.
okay, so we do have the ability if we,
The question then is
No,
how do you secure or control what's going into the bins?
it opens up a whole lot of,
Oh, it does. If we say no more, if you don't need a yellow bag anymore, have
No,
flat
I'm not-
outside.
Can I just say that,
Yes, all
Karen-
around towns were required to pass an ordinance that requires waste haulers to bundle the cost of recycling and trash collection at 1 fee for residential customers.
But how you do that, we did it with the pay as you throw.
That was
But if
just
we-
one component.
but if we undo it, then we have to institute something else.
something else, is right, exactly.
Yeah.
so Karen sells the bags at D&K's and, Rossingville Marketplace also.
Right.
So obviously, they pay us for the bags, so I don't think they're gonna be giving away bags. But could we put something in where, I don't know, if somebody was really desperate for that they could either call us at the
Yes.
town office and we can, I mean, we were giving the school free bags up until they merged, now they pay for them, but I just think the stores are not gonna be able to do that, but we at the office could certainly say,
We can make an exception.
Case or
Yeah,
And we just keep
situation by
track.
Situation.
But we need to set up some sort of an objective criteria so that you guys aren't saddled with picking one person over another without some written objective criteria.
yeah, or you just say, if anybody asks, you can have, you know, I don't know, 5 bags or 3 bags, but that's your limit for a little while, I suppose, and then we wouldn't have to ask anybody any questions, or even 1 bag, I mean, then if they really had to come back. I don't wanna be the
yeah, you don't wanna be
questioner,
the, you don't wanna be the
right.
person that
Yeah,
got
yeah,
the arbitrator, right, yeah.
Certainly, if we had the authority, you know, if somebody said, I really can't afford the bags right now, and we can say, well, here's 3.
Do there still is an organization in town called Jamaica Cares, correct? That Joel's associated with? Does he still do that? I don't know either.
Not familiar with that.
It was kind of a loose net thing, I think, maybe structured, or he started to get off the ground prior to, maybe to help initiate the channeling of stuff through the Muzzy Fund, but I can't recall. But maybe there's an outside organization that could vet this a little bit, and they could come to us and say, hey, we've got 6 people that can't afford this, but I don't know who that is. I think we get into a little bit of a difficult situation,
Yeah.
trying to have the office manage that.
I would suggest we let this go
Table
for
it
a
for
couple
further
of weeks.
discussion.
Table it
Yeah.
and see how things work.
Yeah, okay.
Because it just puts them in a terrible position.
I don't think it can be done that. No, I mean, it has to be somebody else.
I'm also
Well,
curious
those
what
are the
other
only
towns are doing.
places that they can get bags, are the stores.
Right, but it has to be somebody through us or some
Yeah.
approval process, say, yeah, go see Terry and she'll give you the bag.
Yeah,
Whatever.
I agree with leave it alone for now, and if someone has a problem getting rid of their garbage, that they call the office and one of the select board, or we could deal with it
Yeah,
on a
On
situation
an ad
by
hoc basis.
situation or ad hoc basis.
yeah. There's gonna be a lot of these things, and that could be caught up in some of the volunteer level of things too, so. Okay, I threw it out there, somebody had asked. For now, we're suspending all events here at the town hall. There was discussion of public internet access. Chris can chime in. I know there was a broadband study that went out through Wyndham Regional from the state.
Yeah, we have not filled that out yet. Did you send it? You didn't send it in yet, did you?
I didn't send it in, but I think it also went out to a number of people in town, because I know Karen forwarded it to me, and I think maybe you had too.
This is the request from Wyndham County, or Wyndham Regional County, from the state that went through the county,
Right.
WRC, to get an identified, everywhere in the state of Vermont, pockets of free Wi-Fi.
Yep. So that's why,
You answered that.
that's why we're bringing it up. I don't think it was answered yet, but we're now
Well, Chris
addressing.
did. Chris
Well,
answered it,
What
right?
I'm saying is, on the internet tonight,
Yes.
Yeah.
we are listed. And we have listed the school, and we have a little black spot near the library, and then the town is listed as no Wi-Fi. So that was something that we were gonna discuss.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I did it. They sent, Sue West has sent an email to the broadband rep to say, follow up with the town clerks on the survey request that the WRC did. And I talked with Sarah, and she asked me to fill out the survey, so I did. And the library and the school's open, the library's posted their password on the door, so anybody can use the library. And I entered the town hall as there was a category about, are you thinking about making the password available? So I put the town hall under the thinking about it category.
Right, it is blacked out right now, I've got stuff to add to that too if you want.
Well,
Go ahead.
let's go getting back to this. According to the map I read that tonight, the part about possibilities next to the library and one for the town, next to the town icon said no. But let's get back to the library for a second. I was talking to Jen. Her concern was that anybody who stops to use that Wi-Fi location clogs up the road because there's no parking right there. It's just the road. And she said that you get far enough away to get out of the traffic pattern, and then you can't get the Wi-Fi. So her request, my understanding was this is supposed to be vetted through the select board tonight. And that, I didn't know that you had done it. I was surprised to see us on there.
But it's our jurisdiction, I mean, we
can
have
still change it.
authority over I mean, I think Chris was just providing public information at that point. I mean, now we need to discuss whether we open up one of our town networks to the public.
That,
And I've done a little bit of research on that too, just to know, I mean, I'm talking to Tom basically, because we talked about restricting the one at the town office, because we're concerned about security on there. But this does have its own network here.
right.
So we could talk about opening up the password for this building. Go ahead.
That was, today's request from Chris Campany was, if you've got more information, submit it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you.
And I can
open
tell
up
you
the
that, hey,
town hall-
somebody can pull in my front yard and use mine. I mean, that's how general this survey was.
Well,
So-
Jen's request to us
And that makes sense.
was that we not advertise the one for the library outside of our immediate little family because of the safety issues on that very narrow stretch of road.
Yep, and that makes sense, and especially if we can provide alternatives, like here at the school, I mean, if somebody can drive 100 yards away. then-
So the question then for us today is whether we want to put the password for the town hall across the entire state of Vermont.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, if you look at that map, there's so many access points, I mean, there's quite a few, and I imagine more will be popping up. And this is a bigger issue, I mean, this has to do primarily with schools being out, I mean, I think those are gonna be the people that are gonna use it the most, and we wanna support our kids and parents and whatever.
Well, the school works out good. First of all, they got a pretty good Wi-Fi, but they also have plenty of parking.
Yeah,
What would be the drawback to adding a town hall, Wi-Fi to the,
The drawback for the
Index.
town hall?
or
Yeah.
this building.
for this building?
Not the
Why-
town office.
No,
Town hall, I
This
thought you
one.
were saying town hall, you
Maybe I
were a
did.
little
Yeah, well,
reluctant.
this building, right. I personally don't see any.
I don't see.
I don't think there's
why not
network
open to-
restrictions because it's on its own hub versus the town office, so
Exactly.
it's independent.
Exactly. It's not used much, so.
No,
It depends on how good the firewall is on your computers, whether people
Right.
could hack
Whether you can
in
actually
through
access
the
it.
open Wi-Fi.
yeah, and so that's one of our concerns at the office,
Yeah.
but it
But
wouldn't
here-
be here.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be that concern here.
So if we offered the school and the town hall,
I think so.
that would be,
That email I was reading, I was reading
There's an
into,
intermediate possibility of giving the password to individual students who ask for it, if you know who their parents are and trust
Right.
them.
That would not secure.
Huh?
You talking about the town hall or town office?
No, even for here, if somebody would
For here,
call in
yeah,
the town
it doesn't matter.
and say, hey, I need access.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with the town hall.
No,
It's the
meaning,
town office that has me concerned.
I wouldn't give it at all for the town office,
But I
whether they
wouldn't
ask or
either.
not, because we're providing this, that's my opinion.
Well, I get this,
And we
this
have
at
the
the
and the
school,
school,
at the other
that's.
end of town.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of parking right here, so the school's a better one, but also the school has a much more robust system down there. If some of you recall, we paid a lot of money to the school to get a very robust Wi-Fi for educational opportunities, so they probably have a much better
Andy, what were
connection.
you saying? You were gonna say something?
They have a parking lot too.
Just about the email, if I got the same one, that, I was reading into it, is it like, also for like safety, like if someone needed to access the internet, or is it just the scholastic or information, or that they're mapping out all the Wi-Fi hotspots, you know, just for the camera? That's what in Wyndham County?
Right.
They're
It's
doing-
statewide.
It's statewide.
Well,
Right.
But through.
WRC's asking us how many we wanna, but I don't know, I may have read it into it a different way, that it wasn't just for that, it was for like if someone needed some help, like
I agree.
because of the virus, I don't know, I don't have it in front of me.
No, for any, so absolutely. So these two passwords would be available to anybody who is having difficulty getting access to either government-issued information, central government,
right.
or this municipality, or any other research with respect to the virus or any other safety issue. I think that the emphasis was just this, in this time,
Right.
where people don't have access to their schools or to their places of work, or even cafes where they might have previously had access to the internet. This is to substitute for that as best as
Right.
possible. So I would
That's kind
agree,
of
for the
how I
camera.
read it.
Yeah,
I just wondered if you
it's-
guys and girls thought that's
Agree.
was part of
That
the
thing,
email,
yeah.
Agree
Yeah.
the
wholeheartedly.
gist of it, or part of the gist.
Well, I'll make a motion that we share the password for the network here. I don't know the name of the network, I think it's just called Town Hall, or maybe Jamaica Town Hall. And I'll make that motion.
And the school, and the school.
And the school, well, the school is kind of independent, I believe the school password, that's up to them to provide their password.
Did you say they put it on, oh,
The
that's,
school is already.
The school's already provided that.
An
So-
education agency.
the password goes right there on the map.
Right,
It shows it right on the map.
right.
Perfect.
So the school is already kind of taken care of, and I will make the motion that we offer the password for this town, this network.
I second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed? And password is Jamaica with a capital J and an exclamation point for the password for, I believe it's called Town Hall, or maybe it's called Jamaica Town Hall, but it'll pop up. Yeah, perfect.
Who's going to tell Chris Campbell?
Do you mind, or I could?
I'll do it if
Thank
you want.
Yeah. So Chris will forward that to
And check,
Chris to Chris.
Chris, just make sure I'm right on this, but check on the map, because it looked like they had the little two black squares for the ones that are potentially available, and that's what they have the library listed as, so I was surprised to see that. But maybe, but check it, and see,
This
just
thing?
the map, yeah, is that the current map?
Yeah, this is,
Yeah,
I think they probably would have said, any town, facility, school, or library is a potential. And that's what it's listed there as a potential.
there we are. And if you click
Guys,
on
zoom.
that, the box comes up and then you can scroll through the
Okay,
locations.
this is not the same map I looked at today. The one I had today had 3 spots for Jamaica. This was one of them, but it also showed the school and us.
Maybe
so
you,
maybe it's dated, maybe it's up,
Or,
a later date.
I don't know, it wasn't today, this is the 23rd.
well, it's probably
Today's the
updated
23rd.
time.
I don't know, I zoomed in on it, that might have made a difference. We'll talk later. Yeah.
So again, the other thing that's under here, one more, at least one more. There's some discussion around town, and Chris, jump into it regarding any coordination of volunteers, and kind of blessing that, so to speak, I guess. Obviously, there's a lot of grassroots efforts for volunteer coordination all over the place, a lot of outside organizations that are doing this in Brattleboro and everywhere else. My thought is that, we can kind of act as a dissemination of information point. But beyond, I don't know if we want to go beyond that. I mean, Jessica and I talked a little bit about, any, liability with the town. I mean, we could authorize somebody to go do something and it's still covered under our town employees/volunteers policy. But I don't know, I mean, that conversation that I think the planning commission was discussed, coordinating some volunteer efforts or asked if they could be assistants in that regard.
We,
Volunteer for what?
Can I say something?
well, in our neighborhood, the Amiot Longos have formed a little network to take care of everybody on Wyndham Hill, to check on them, make sure they're all right, or go for things if they're not. And I thought the planning commission thought there might be a need for volunteers at some intermediate level between the emergency responders and these neighborhood volunteer groups. And particularly if people start getting sick and quarantined and the small neighborhood groups, start falling apart, a town-wide group of volunteers might be really important. And
Things
so,
such as bringing food to the shut-ins and all those type of things.
the idea is we're wondering if you want to task us to set something up or give us some guidance or.
So can I ask a question in this regard? So I think volunteer efforts are a support to kind of what actions are being taken on a more official basis. So I know we had some back and forth about the LEMP, and I know that there's been some coordination in your role around activities. Could we hear kind of from you in terms of those things? And then the volunteer piece would fit into that. So for example, volunteers would understand what resources are available through the fire department, through emergency management, through EMS, and then what, you know what I'm saying? Is that, so I don't want to put the cart before the horse, maybe we could hear the.
There's just one other entity, the How Are You Doing Today program or something the Sheriff's Department has implemented. I forgot to bring it. You get on this list if you're maybe elderly, maybe you're in a bad way, maybe you get sick, and they'll check on you every couple days or make some sort of contact either by phone or in person. I don't have that whole thing, but that came down to the town somehow. I read it.
I don't recall it either. We could look into that.
But
That's
part-
okay, for
that's-
sure.
It's through the sheriff's department, they've been doing it for years.
Right.
And they will call you every day to make sure that you are okay.
But I have,
And you just have to get on the list.
on the computer, it gives me, on the email I got, you call, get on the list. Terry just said. So that's happening. That will take care of, that's for Jamaica.
It's for,
I don't know, well, that,
in Wyndham County.
right.
Oh, it's Wyndham County?
Let me give you a little bit, on this volunteer thing, a little bit of history in Jamaica. When we had Irene hit, we started getting a lot of volunteers. This is a great town. Everybody came to the woodwork to help us, incredible. But it got a little out of hand because it was hard to manage. And so Ed, Dorter Duque, took over sort of the volunteer coordinator for a couple of reasons, because it was crazy in the command post and he had a little bit of space to do it. After that initial surge was over, we then run into difficulty about assigning people to do stuff that would cause liabilities for the town. Specifically, people were volunteering to clean houses and clean basements. The problem with that is because of the potential toxicity of what they were cleaning, we incurred a liability by sending people down to do that.
Someone sued the town? The town was sued?
Well, what we ended up doing was working with neighborhood associations, our neighborhood connections, and we then referred the volunteers to them. They then vetted and trained and assigned the volunteers around the whole region. But that's what we did, rather than take the risk of incurring liability of sending. There was a group of some kids from another part of
All
the
over
state.
the world, college kids that were supposed to clean
Exactly.
the Long Trail and the Appalachian Trail, which was closed down. They were, a lot of them, looking for something to do. That was just one group of volunteers.
Yeah. And
There was a deluge of different,
Oh, people came out of the woods. They went into the woods.
the
but-
Rubicon guys came in.
Yeah.
And it was just, we were real wary of not, someone getting hurt. under the-
Injury potential.
like Working for
Right.
Yeah.
Jamaica.
And so that's kind of the history of our use of volunteers. And when you and I were, email we shared back and forth, my concern is along those lines, as I said, sadly, my now retired chair hat thinks about the potential liability of all this stuff. I don't know what Neighborhood Connections is doing right now. They've always had a pretty good history. I think this has been 8 or 9 years since a personnel turnover. But if a neighborhood doesn't, it doesn't have the town's authority to it, or imprimatur, I'm gonna get carried away. If the town agency, such as the planning commission, were to coordinate this, then I believe the liability flows back to the town.
I'm new to this law, but the law seems pretty clear that if we're talking about a response to an infectious disease that would affect everybody in the state, if not the country, that is not a discretionary act. It is an act which is for the benefit of all people in Vermont. So for example, any work that was done to repair a waterway that flows through Jamaica but affects other individuals within the state, or to repair a road, that liability, the town would not lose its sovereign immunity. Similarly, what I understand in talking with other lawyers, any action that we're taking to protect the population of the state, and which would include, by the way, checking on individuals who are making sure that they are not leaving their home or don't need to leave their home, potentially spread the illness, supporting them on quarantine. This town would not lose its sovereign immunity, especially, and it would not be foiled by the fact that we have VLCT group insurance. Group insurance is there's case law on that it doesn't eliminate the fact that you have it. So I think if we could go back to, and I don't mean to be a broken record, but I'd love to hear, I thought we were gonna hear kind of what actions are being taken by, our EMT and the fire department, what have you. I know there have been activities. Let's see what that's yielding, and then we could go from there.
Well, if you're asking what the fire department does, it responds to emergency calls for fire or medical assistance. Whether it's somebody's house or somebody's car or car wrecks, if we get a call for a medical emergency, we respond to that. Right now, we are responding cautiously because obviously certain kinds of medical responses are overwhelming the system. And what we will do
Is
in
that
practice,
happening in Jamaica now? It is overwhelming the system in Jamaica?
the system around the country.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the hospital, EMT, most of our real serious all of our medical calls get a response from rescuing. And so our current process with the limited staff we have is to respond as best we can to make sure that we're preserving life. And if somebody's seriously injured, we're going to put the appropriate suit and personal protection equipment on. But usually that's going to be Rescue Inc. that's going to come in and that. But that's a response to a call. We don't go unless we're dispatched by Keene Mutual Aid. So independent of a dispatch assignment, we don't respond.
Right, so you get and it's the fire department kind of is looking at things like protective equipment and that's being stockpiled, or
PPE, we had a
is there
meeting
access?
ago where each individual was given his own set of PPE that he has with him or her to use as necessary for the response. So far, we've been lucky. We've only had a couple of responses that have been questionable, but most of what the fire department does not involve somebody calling in with a cough and a fever, for example.
Right,
We have other kinds of things we still have to be careful about. But as far as what we respond to 911, think of it as 911 calls.
right. And so 911 calls could include, in the future, someone who's sick at home.
Exactly.
Right,
What they're
okay.
doing with 911 right now, if you call 911, that call goes to PSAP, which is a public service, state police. Can't remember the other, anyway, they will then the 911 will shift the call to the PSAPs. PSAP will then try to get some sense of the caller, what he's looking for. And recently, in the last few weeks, for example, a lot more specificity is being requested about fever, travel out of state, travel out of the country, coughs, dry cough versus, there's a lot of things that they're asked. Then that information is passed to, in our case, Keene Mutual Aid, which is out of the Southwestern Mutual Aid, out of Southwestern New Hampshire Mutual Aid, which is the dispatch agency for all of us around the area. They then would call us, tone us out is the phrase, and give us the information they have, and we would respond accordingly. So anything we do by procedure has to have basically a tone out from Keene Mutual Aid.
Okay, and just in terms of prepare, like, anything that you want to share in terms of actions specifically, other than each person who responds to an emergency call having PPE, anything else, or that's kind of
Well, we've
where
all gone
things
through
stand?
specific, special training that
Okay.
we keep up to make sure that we have a good understanding of how valuable the PPE is, but also our EMT people, of which I am not one. I'm a fireman, not an EMT.
Okay.
But the EMS team has done special training relating specifically
To
to
COVID.
COVID virus, yeah. So the training's there. We provided the equipment. We do not have enough, but we have enough for emergency meeting right now for a short while. And then massive backup from rescuing. They do a very good job of backing up and showing up with the right PPE.
And that, the backup is from, I didn't.
Rescue Aid.
Rescue Aid.
Yes, are you familiar with Rescue Aid? Let's chat later. We don't need to go on.
Yeah, no.
Go ahead, Andy.
Back to what Chris was asking.
Yeah.
Has the select board received any instruction to do anything more than we usually do
I have.
concerning the safety of the town? Or would we expect, has anyone got anything from to the town health officer, which is right now the select board, or the Jamaica Board of Health?
I have not.
All
I
right.
think Chris was trying to be
No, but I'm just saying,
proactive,
I think that when if it ever comes down to the governor or the Vermont Department of Health giving us instruction on what to do as this thing evolves, as they, I suspect, test more, and, you know, everybody's been watching and reading, too much probably, but then, I mean, I just don't want the select board or the planning commission to get out and doing things that we don't do.
Yeah.
Not to dismiss what Chris is asking, but I don't know how, as a select board, we would go about coordinating volunteers through the planning commission.
Well, I think, maybe I'm misreading it, or I think there's three tiers here, kind of. One is what Chris has talked about, those really true neighborhood volunteers, and that's gonna happen, and I
Right.
want to encourage that. The other is at the other end of what Paul's talking about, emergencies, I mean, serious 911s, whether it's COVID-19s or anything else, and to continue to do that. And I see maybe, and then I'll let Chris jump back in again, but I see we can not get involved on the day-to-day, you go do this, you go do that, but we can act as kind of an informational point, and maybe it's through one of us or through sharing with the office, that if someone calls up, I've got a situation, you think, well, here's Neighborhood Connections phone numbers, here's UNICEF's phone number, I don't know what else, there's hundreds of organizations that are already doing this, and like you said, we don't need to reinvent the wheel we don't need to do them. We need to push it onto somebody else, and if anybody in town wants to volunteer for these organizations that are out there already, then we encourage.
But I think it ought
Or
to
am
be
I
clear that the volunteering for the organization, that's independent of
Yeah, and
the
we can
select board
just steer
or the planning
people.
committee.
That's how I see we can help,
Commission, yeah.
how the town can help, as opposed to getting to that level, but, go ahead.
A couple of things. The school has set up a program to feed the children by having lunches that being picked up in a tent out in front of the school every day. I talked with the school, and they said if that starts breaking down, they would more than welcome help from the town to get the lunches to the children. the second thing is, if there were to be a volunteer course set up in the town at this intermediate level, it would require some gophers to do the delivery of things and somebody to coordinate it. Now, the point about neighborhood connections is great, and maybe the best thing to do is raise volunteers for neighborhood connections to coordinate. So maybe what we ought to do is check with neighborhood connections and see if that's a workable plan.
And from the question she's asking about the fire emergency, I really like the fact that this town rallies around the situations and they get out and they do these little ad hoc committees. That saved our butt during Irene, absolutely. But this particular situation, if somebody's going to check on someone and they aren't prepared for the potential of running into the virus, we're causing a lot more grief than we're helping with. So those kinds of events and those kinds of volunteer, I don't even know how to say it, the little pockets of volunteers around the whole country. All around the country, people are doing things for this. Anything that involves potential contact with another person can really provide us with a real nightmare to fix, because they don't know. And we're trained to not go, frankly, into something that we aren't that sure of. So in that sense, as much as I like the idea, instead of having one victim, we've got this victim and maybe 2 or 3 more at home when she goes home to fix dinner before she gets tested. So there's, really quickly, then I'll shut up. Years and years ago when I was stationed in Washington, D.C., we had an airplane that left National Airport. They got as far as a bridge and crashed. And people were scattered all over the lake. And the story that I remember, for whatever reason, was an off-duty EMT, I can help, dives into the lake to go rescue, into the river to go rescue people. We now have 2 victims who have hypothermia and possibly drowning, instead of the one that we started with. So I think of that, and I've always taught that in my experience, because it was all over the national news, as it turned out. The idea is, one of the things we're very cautious about is not becoming victims to the extent that that takes me out of any ability to help the next victims. So part of what's going on with the training in the first responders around the entire country is, we used to say, first do no harm. First do no harm to yourself. Because if you get quarantined for 14 days, whether you get sick or not, that's 2 weeks. Our very small little department doesn't have you. So yes, we're trained to help. We're also trained to not get in more trouble than we're already in, to not cause any more trouble. So that's what I really think this is a really good idea, except, and that's the part where the old stuff kicks in. Sorry.
As a select board member, I don't know what you guys are getting, but I'm getting plenty of direction and information about what the state is doing and what other people, they think other entities should be doing. More than I can read sometimes from, the different entities, the Department of Health, the governor's office, there's the Corona website for the state of Vermont, and then all the stuff that's trickling down to us.
Right.
There's a lot to absorb, but it all says, keep your distance, stay home if you can. We all know this, but I think that if it comes down to where they want us to do more as a select board or a planning commission, we'll get that direction from up north, from the Department of Health.
This afternoon put out a call for non-profits and individuals to think outside the box and come up with innovative ideas. Also, the health department has put out guidance for home-based service delivery, which, well, it's not that extensive, but it addresses your point of don't become a vector for the virus. So, the only thing I can say is, if it'd be a whole lot more effective if the town of Jamaica put out a call for volunteers rather than Brian, Patrick, and Chris did. So that's why I brought it to your attention. Now, one more point. All this will be moot if the worst that happens is what's happened. Where we are now, where we're 6 feet apart from each other. if it gets as bad and lasts as long as some of the experts are saying it's going to, you know, we've really got to do something.
Well, I think if anybody's, there's a lot of, like Andy said, there's a lot of information out there. I think we can help channel people's discovery of this information. If somebody, you know, provided internet access, or if someone calls the office, you know, I'll gladly take a phone call and I'm sure every one of us would if Sarah had a question that somebody called in. So if someone's looking for help, certainly let us know. I mean, and if the worst case scenario, I mean, it's not worse, but the best case scenario is we can point them at other entities in the area.
I believe.
And Paul just, I mean, there's 211. I mean, there's
Just dial 211.
you know, if someone's in need. And I would certainly encourage these small little neighborhood help groups, or whatever you want to call
I
it.
believe that's what we're charged to do.
Right, I would say right now, there's not, those types of documents and those types of links are not on our website. So the LEMP is not on our website, it's not on the Wyndham Regional
But I
site,
mean, in
which gives a
general,
lot of
the
information.
state website, I mean, like Andy
Right.
said, there's so much stuff coming
That-
down. You can go to VLCT and there's 100.
We should.
Right, but we could distill it down into links and particular information that's unique to Jamaica that would be helpful to people. And I do think there's, unfortunately, there may be a time when we do need hands as a town. Hopefully not, God willing. We're a relatively small hamlet, and at least from the research that I've done so far, Paul, there's not a huge influx of second homeowners that are using their home. But as I get more information from caretakers, I'll give that to you. But it sounds like from what you've described, really what the fire department and emergency management does is respond to emergency calls. And that's it, which leaves a whole host of potential support that individuals in this town, particularly vulnerable members of our community, might need some support. So we don't all have to agree on everything. That's what a select board is for. I would say I'm a little bit closer to where the planning commission is thinking that we should be prepared to potentially have specific targeted goals of helping our, you know, specific needs that arise and develop, and that we as a select board could support the planning commission in terms of calling for specific support or asking specific agencies, nonprofits to help, what have you. But that's just where I stand on that, and I don't see potential liability after my research as being a reason not to be open to those steps.
Maybe think of it simply as, like right now there are kids, they get the lunches and they need the food delivered to them. Let's expand that to kids, adults, elderly that get sick and now require quarantine. I would rather see food and medication delivered to their doorstep than them getting desperate and going out and creating a lot of vectors by going into a store or going somewhere. Just having that maybe in place, or at least organized or talked about, where an action can be taken to make sure they stay isolated.
We could resolve that the planning commission is going to be looking into this and coming back to the select board with proposals for specific volunteer efforts that we could then consider.
I think that's great. It's not in the scope of our duties as select board. We're to govern the town, to do the town business right now. I believe until we get other instructions from the state, like, could you do this, could you do that? I don't, beside passing on information like we've already talked about 3 times, like the sheriff's department thing, the other websites, and I got no problem with that, but as far as stepping outside of our regular duties, I don't know if we should be doing that. I mean, we can talk about it, but I don't think we could execute anything like that.
I don't see us all putting on a special hat and, you know, organizing efforts, but
Unless they
to
ask us to.
understand what is being considered, I would want to know what's being considered, how it's being proposed to be effectuated. But again, we don't all have to agree
Yeah.
If for whatever reason you guys choose to do that, before you do anything at all, I think that one of us, you or I or somebody, should get in touch with the town attorney. Because it was under his guidance way back when. And I'd like to maintain the continuity to make sure we're all doing it the way that he worked out the first time. One of the reasons why we, as a fire department, have masks, gowns, and goggles, although we don't have enough, but one of the reasons we have what we have is because I don't remember which one it was, somebody who was down, one of the groups that was down cleaning basements, we had to abort that mission immediately because of the potential liability. And I just kept all the stuff because FEMA didn't want it back. So I've had it in my closet now for 8 years. And we're one of the few departments who actually had stuff to immediately to give our guys. So there's these little pieces of history that accumulate that make me concerned. But if for whatever reason it goes forward, let's get together and make an appeal to the town attorney to review his earlier guidance with the current situation.
Yeah, and I'd like to, I mean, we can easily ask the plan commission to come up with that looks like. Maybe, I mean, I apologize because I'm probably not seeing it fully either. I mean, obviously, it's connecting people that have a need and somebody could fill that need. And it could be simple, could be a huge complicated thing. I don't think we want to go there, but if it's just as, you know, one example, like you just said, I mean, the school needs one more person to drive. I mean, it's not the select board telling them to go drive, it's them volunteering to drive, so we're just making these connections, so.
Agree.
And it boils down to raising volunteers. We sure don't want to get to town in the, you know, in a situation where they're liable for anything, but there's got to be a way to dance around that.
Yeah.
Or get people sick. And,
Right.
You know,
You don't
that's
know.
outside of mine. I have no expertise in what's going on with any of this, with this virus, except for what they're instructing us to do. I'm an armchair scientist. That's what I was called the other day when I gave an opinion about something. So, you know, I don't want to get sick. I don't want Jessica to get sick or anyone else. You know, this is going to get worse before it gets better, and just parroting what I've been hearing. I mean, we're kind of somewhat helpless as far as, you know, going, knocking on someone's door with a gas mask on or whatever. It's not funny. I'm laughing because I'm fearful about it, but, you know, I believe that the governor and the health department will give us further instructions. They may tell us all to stay home. I
Well,
hope
the
not.
instruction, you're exactly right, because I'm getting stuff daily from all 3 different agencies, health department.
I get what you get.
Yeah, we said,
Because I took that course.
they still love you, that's why they want you back. But the thing, wash your hands, cough into your elbow, like that. Don't go out if you don't have to go out. Keep 6 feet from any physical contact. And stay home. Oh, I said that already. Stay home. They say it over and over again.
Especially if you're sick.
Right. I
If you're sick,
we
don't-
should say, I would never want to encourage a volunteer to breach law. Like that would not, you know, if at some point we get more specific requirements issued by the governor, we're all gonna have to comply with those unless there's an exception for someone who's in emergency management. So that's,
Okay, well, I think, I mean, I was gonna say we can encourage, it's like, we'll encourage anybody to come up with solutions to, you know,
To needs.
to these needs, finding solutions.
Besides the attorney, go and check with the health department, see what they say about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's
That might-
Vermont
they might-
Health Department, Vermont Emergency Management, give me a couple others. There's a number of websites, and if you go through them like I end up doing, they're all saying pretty much the same thing. Wash your hands every 20 minutes, apparently, or no, for 20 seconds, but try every day. Wash your hands a lot. Cough into your sleeve. Don't go out if you're sick, stay home. Don't go to work if you don't have to, and stay home again. But there's not a lot anybody can do about this, because there's no vaccine and there's no anecdote. But there's plenty of websites available for real information. That pretty much boils down to that. But all the other specific details are available on the Vermont Department of Health website, Vermont Emergency Management website, town health officer's website, trying to look at my email list. It's out there. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
We good? I mean, super discussion. Any other comments? I'll gladly jump in. I mean, I think any one of us would, I mean, if you guys got ideas, we'll come back and forth, and if we need to go to the attorney, I mean, it should come through me. I mean, I can appoint somebody else, but I mean, right now, it's not anybody just calling up the town attorney, so, but any of those issues, I'll make a point to call Neighborhood Connections, just because I'm curious now too, and we can keep this discussion going. I mean, we want to help out. I mean, it's not trying to sound cold in any ways. I mean, any one of us are going to jump in here in a heartbeat, but we just need to be cautious, more for the health reasons than anything else.
And I go back to Irene, this town jumped all over the place to help everybody else out. Incredible amount of volunteerism. Sadly, right now, some of that volunteerism would have been this guy jumping into the river to help the other guy who's got hypothermia. We don't want to make anybody else. And I'll tell you, as been doing this for a long time, it's hard to not help. When you see someone in distress, even if you're trained to not go there yet, it's hard to not help. So when we're asking people who haven't been trained to not go into it, the chances of that infection being spread is even higher. Call us.
Okay.
Just one little quick thing.
Okay.
When you're,
Okay, well, I've got-
I thought you were doing that already.
Well, I've got one other thing regarding the new additions to, I passed around some information. John Suhikian, who's an interested person in joining the planning commission. He actually attended the planning commission last week. He was hoping to attend the meeting here tonight just to introduce himself. He's had a second home here in town for a number of years. He's a full-time resident now with his wife, and they're involved heavily at Stratton. They've been pass holders for a while. They also run the Vermont Challenge, and super engaged person. And I think the planning commission will appoint or recommend that he join, and I'd like to propose that we appoint him to the planning commission.
I'll second that motion.
You guys have any, I mean, I know both of you are supportive, so. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. Oh, any opposed? All in favor. So John Suhikian, welcome to the planning commission.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Now we have one more position to fill on that board. That was all I had for added things. I think, unless I missed something, there's.
This is one letter I got today. This is a letter we got from the, Meg Gonzalez, is the director of West River Thrives. It's West River Valley Thrives. It's just information, and I'm reading it quick. Just wanted to let everyone know that the Veggie Van Go, the logo here for you camera guys, the Veggie Van Go food program will be providing fresh produce at the Leland and Gray parking lot this Thursday from 12 to 1 p.m. It says, please help spread the word, and let's remember to practice social distancing during pickup. Word has been spread.
How did that come down to you?
Email, just send to me.
As a past chair?
No, just Fraser Brew.
Okay.
I think we find, as you're gonna find out
Sarah got
someday.
that today too.
Huh? What's that?
Sarah got it?
Sarah got it too, yeah. It may just be, everybody on
After a while, you're on somebody.
I'm on so many different lists that I yell.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
But anyway, that's all I had. That just came today, I think. Yeah.
Any other public comments? Thank you to the planning commission members, thank you. Nice snowy night. Anybody else?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Meeting adjourned at 8:27.